You're listening to the Future Tech Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies such as artificial intelligence, stem cells, 3D printing, gene editing, Bitcoin, blockchain, the microbiome, quantum computing, virtual reality, and exploring space are much closer than you might think. In fact, many early versions of these technologies are in play right now, and the companies that are using these technologies are the focus of this podcast. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a thorny medical problem. Remember, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and tell your friends about it. Thank you. Jacobs with the Future Tech and Finding Your Genius podcast. I have Jonathan Parker. He's the head of the Sleep Performance Institute. The website is sleepperformanceinstitute.com, and we're going to talk about what they do there and what the goal is. So, Jonathan, thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Dan, from our talk before the recording, that you have a clinic where you help patients with snoring and sleep apnea, but the Sleep Performance Institute is different. Can you tell listeners about it a little bit?
Sure. I'm actually trained as a dentist, been practicing for 36 years, but focused most of my training and time with helping patients to treating snoring and sleep apnea. And so I work with a lot of physicians, sleep physicians in my work, and I collaborate care with patients. And one of those sleep physicians is a neurologist named Mike Howell, who I think has done a podcast with you in the past. And Mike connected with me, Dr. Howell connected with me about 7 years ago because we were both interested in sleep health and performance. And we started to work together in helping people in a bigger way. Both of us were seeing patients and helping people one at a time. And I'll tell you, there's been nothing in my career that's been more rewarding to see or be in the presence of people whose lives have changed as a result of improving their sleep. But he and I were both really wanted to focus on improving sleep in larger groups of people because so many people are sleeping poorly. I mean, the reality is that most people don't sleep well, but they're not sure what to do about it. And he and I had so much experience, combined about 40 years of experience in helping people sleep better with all sorts of different sleep issues, that we really sort of understand sleep at a deep level. And we wanted to bring that to larger numbers of people. And the truth is that most people who have sleep problems don't really need to see a doctor about it. They just need to understand the problem, understand the challenges they're having, and understand sleep, and then be given some ways to resolve it without using medications or medical devices or surgery. And so we started to put together programming that would help people in a simple way to start to resolve their sleep problems. And so that's really what he and I have been working on over the last 7 years, and it's been quite an amazing experience to see that happen.
The clinic for snoring and apnea is not the whole story, so you had to do the Sleep Performance Institute. So how do the problems get siloed? Who sees you in the snoring and apnea part, and who goes to the Sleep Performance Institute, and why?
Well, they're very different. So in my practice, where I treat people with snoring and sleep apnea, most of those people have already seen somebody like Dr. Howell, like a sleep physician or their primary physician, with a complaint of snoring and the symptoms of apnea. And many of them have gone through some sort of assessment or sleep testing to confirm that they have sleep apnea. And the treatment of choice for people with sleep apnea is CPAP, continuous positive airway pressure. It's basically a mask and a blower, and it blows air through the hose and mask through your nose to open up the airway to help you sleep better at night, because people with sleep apnea stop breathing. Snoring is sort of self-explanatory. And it doesn't only affect the person sleeping. As a matter of fact, most of the time it doesn't affect the person sleeping. It affects their sleep partner.
I know. I've woken up and my kids have said, "Dad, you were snoring." I had no clue.
That's right. So, and CPAP is highly effective in treating people with sleep apnea, but only 50% of people who use the CPAP can tolerate it. So many people need an alternative option. So they're sent to my office because we use oral appliances, dental devices that fit over the upper and lower teeth, and they hold the jaw slightly forward. And that opens the airway to help people breathe, and it resolves snoring. So it's most effective in people with mild to moderate sleep apnea. It's highly effective in people who don't have sleep apnea but snore loudly. And so it really, in 85% of the people who, it really improves their snoring. For people with mild to moderate apnea, probably 60 to 70% success in managing that as well. But it's only effective in about 50% of people with severe apnea, and those are the people that usually should be using CPAP to manage their problem. So that
do you have many people that are willing to do both CPAP and the oral appliance, or can you even do that with the mask?
Yes, that is one option, that if people are not getting the results with their CPAP that they want, or that the sleep physician that they're working with wants, then we do combinations of therapy periodically. And if they wear the appliance, it will help to stabilize the airway so that blowing air in is much easier and makes it easier for the patient to tolerate. So the answer is yes, we do both, but it's usually in people with more severe apnea where the CPAP alone isn't enough or isn't tolerable enough.
So at the Sleep Performance Institute, though, are you still working on the same problems just with different people, or are the problems different? The remedies different?
The problem is different. So the Sleep Performance Institute is a completely separate company or business. And what we know is that, like I mentioned, most people don't sleep well, and they're not sure what to do about it. And by not sleeping well, what I mean is they struggle falling asleep or staying asleep. And when people will complain of difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, and you ask them, well, what is it that is causing this? They'll say, well, I can't shut my mind down. I lie down in bed and my mind starts racing, and then my task list, I've got to do this, this, and this tomorrow. And they can't drift off to sleep. Or they wake up during the night and the same thing starts to happen. Or they can't get comfortable during sleep, so they're restless. So there are huge numbers of people with this issue, and they just figure that, hey, that's me, but they don't know what to do about it. So Dr. Howell and I, based on our experience, have created programs to help people understand what it is that's triggering these issues, and then give them a step-by-step process that is fun and interesting and engaging to help them resolve it. So what
the question here, or quick observation, is that I've spoken to a lot of people about sleep, and I've heard a lot of them say, you probably have too, oh yeah, I sleep pretty well, but yet they're having, symptom this, that, or the other.
Exactly.
And it's funny, it's simply because you're literally not aware, you're unconscious. So you don't know what's going on, whether you're snoring or this, that, or the other. And even if you have arousals, you may not wake up all the way. So it makes it hard to figure out what happened when you slept, because you're not aware. You haven't thought about it.
Exactly.
And like a dream, at 15 minutes after you wake up, it's like a dream. You just kind of forget about it.
Right. So there are three key elements there. Number one is, in order to feel refreshed and really live your life to its fullest, we need to sleep well. And sleeping well means that our quality of sleep is good, that our length of sleep is good, and that the timing of our sleep is consistent with each of us. And so quality, length, and timing of sleep are absolutely essential for getting good, healthy sleep. And for many people, they're not getting enough sleep. They're not getting it at the right time according to their natural body clock. And like you said, their sleep is disrupted for some reason during the night, but they're unaware of it. And so, the technology that's out there, you can buy a Fitbit or a Jawbone or an Apple Watch, whatever technology you want, and it will give you information about how much you're moving around at night, or maybe your quality of sleep, which you weren't aware of. But the question is, why aren't you feeling well? Why aren't you sleeping well? And so we need to help people understand sleep and then help them try and identify what it is that is impacting their quality of sleep, or educate them well enough to be able to understand what their body clock says or when they should be sleeping. I mean, you've probably experienced that as it relates to timing of sleep. We say, you need 8 hours of sleep, and normally you go to bed at 10:30 and you wake up at 6:30 and you feel pretty good. But the nights you go to bed at 1, you've been out to, with friends, you get to bed at 1 in the morning and you wake up at 9 or 9:30, you don't feel as rested. That's because the timing of your sleep is not consistent with your circadian rhythm or your body clock. And so you're not going to feel rested if you don't sleep within the timing, your own natural timing. So those are little things.
Question here, circadian question.
Yes.
So regardless of your chronotype, is there a time you should never go to sleep and wake up, no matter what? Whatever my chronotype, is it no good for anyone to go to bed at 6 in the morning and sleep till 2 p.m. and then get up and stay up again till 6 in the morning? For instance, I've been going to bed at 3 or 4 in the morning for 20 years, and I get up at 11 or noon. So even if I have a really late chronotype, is that just too late and I shouldn't be doing that no matter what? Is there, again, certain times that are not healthy for anybody?
No, I would say that it really, what we will do, the answer to your question is no. There are people that have certain chronotypes, like you mentioned, that are at the end of the bell curve. They're different than most people. But the truth is that it's probably a very small percentage. But if we said to you, all right, let's determine what your chronotype is. Let's determine what your circadian rhythm is. What I would ask you is, look, if we sent you to Hawaii for a month and we said to you, you have no responsibilities, there's no work responsibilities, there's no family responsibilities, go to bed when you're sleepy, wake up when you're done. If I offered you $1,000, you couldn't sleep any longer, and eat when you're hungry and so on, what time would you go to sleep and what time would you wake up? So would you say it's, like you said, 3 to 4 in the morning and wake up, 11 or 12?
Well, I'll give you an example, and I don't mean to turn this personal, but maybe it's interesting to you and listeners.
Yeah.
When I go on vacation with my family, I get up at 8, 9 o'clock, and it's okay because I realized I'm thinking time doesn't matter. We have to get up and do stuff and all that. And when I get tired, it's okay for me to go to bed at 11 or 11 p.m. or midnight. I can tell if I get up at 6, it's just too early for me no matter what I do. Yep. So I can tell probably my sweet spot of the earliest would be to go to bed at midnight and get up at 8 or something, or 1 and get up at 9. So I can feel it by having done that experiment. And I also feel as I'm getting older that the 3 and the 4 is too late. I don't sleep as well, so I've been trying to pull it back. So just by feel, I've kind of figured that out.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. So based on what you're telling me, what I'm saying is, what time at night would you be sleepy? And you're saying somewhere between 12 and 1. Is that accurate?
The day is done properly, and I'm not drinking caffeine late, and I'm not messing myself up. Yeah, that's probably the natural time that I would get tired.
That's what we want to know. And so if you went to bed at, let's say, 12 or 1, like you said, naturally you'd probably feel comfortable waking up between 8 and 9, something like that. But like you said, at 6, it's not okay. because that's not within your rhythm, and you're going to be dragging that day, and you probably won't be as sharp. Your mind won't be quite as sharp, and so on. So, I mean, these are some of the exercises that we use. What we've created basically is we've created an assessment tool, and we've created an app around this programming that I think is going to change the game for people. And the reason is it will help us. We go through an assessment, a survey that's going to be fun. It's got video. It's got interesting information. And it takes you 10 minutes to go through the assessment and answer some questions about you. And then once you've done that, we've created an algorithm which will tell us what your sleep issues are. Based on that information, it will take you then to a pathway that will go through steps of resolving that sleep issue and getting you sleeping, your quality of sleep, your length of sleep, and your timing of sleep back on track for you. I mean, if there are 15 different people in the room, there's probably 15 different circadian rhythms. We're really trying to customize it to each person, and this survey tool allows us to do that. And it's fun and engaging, and the way that we've decided to move this out into the world is by going into corporations, and because when people sleep well, their health is better, their mood is better, and their performance is dramatically better. And we know in corporations, if a corporation has 1,000 employees, it's going to save $1.4 million in revenue for that corporation based on all the research data that's out there on the economics of healthy sleep versus poor sleep. And so that's why a lot of companies are interested in engaging in this, and because they look at the bottom line. We're more interested in looking at it. I mean, that's one small piece, but we're more interested in looking at it this way because if we can help people sleep better, it'll improve their relationships, which we need right now. There's too much angst in the world, and if people sleep better, they deal with each other in a more loving way. In addition, they'll have more energy for their family at the end of the day. They'll be better workers. We just feel like it can make a big difference in the world, and there's nothing out there like that right now. And there are some amazing brilliant sleep medicine people who are, teaching and working with patients, but I just haven't seen anything yet that I think can be brought to groups of people that can make a difference like this. So it's kind of what we've created in order to try and help sleep in general in a big way. We also are going to sports teams. We've met with a couple of professional sports teams who are interested in it because it dramatically changes performance, speed, split-second decision-making, reaction time, strength, endurance. I mean, the research data, and all this is evidence-based. It's all based on research data. It clearly supports the impact of sleep on athletic performance and performance in general in the workplace, reducing accidents, reducing healthcare costs, just improving people's health in general.
When I sleep well, all my relationships are better. I'm more calm. I don't snap at people and everything. And when I don't sleep well, the day is just a struggle to get through. And, again, I tend to be short with people, and, even little interactions at the coffee shop or whatever. So,
Exactly.
Sleep is, it makes a huge difference. And I know everyone listening has a memory of a time where they woke up and they felt amazing and they were ready to go. And unfortunately, people have memories a lot, probably recently, of times they woke up dragging and having had coffee and just feeling all day. So sleep is super important for sure.
Yeah.
So at the Institute, who you said you're reaching out to sports teams and businesses.
Yeah.
Who are the people that have successfully gone through the program, and what does that look like? Any case studies, without names?
Yeah. So recently we worked with a firm that does work with emerging companies, and they wanted to engage us because they wanted better performance out of their workers, and they could tell that, the employees, because of the long hours, were struggling at times, and the quality of the work they wanted to see improved. And it's a fast-paced business. So we went in and did programming for them. They went through the survey, and then we guided them. This was a smaller company. I think they had 20 employees. And they noticed a difference within a week. And the co-founders of the company both engaged in it, and they both were involved in, are you familiar with CrossFit, which is, training and fitness exercise
Yes.
program? So they were both involved in training and competing. And one of the co-founders kind of looked at me and said, hey, he said, I have not lifted this many times as far as weights ever. And he what he did is he changed his whole schedule so that instead of staying up later at night and trying to finish projects, he was going to bed at 8:30 or 9 and getting up at 5 or 4:30 to work before anybody else was up. And then he would, instead of training first thing in the morning at 5:30 or 6, he was now training at noon. And he said it's completely changed the game for him. His work is better. He's got a better mood. He said his competition has dramatically changed in his ability, just his endurance, strength, and speed. So, I mean, that's one example of how it can affect people personally, and his families noticed a difference, and also in his sports performance.
Well, how do you get people to figure that stuff out, or do they have to do it themselves?
You mean without a program or the app?
Yeah, specifically, what does the journey look like for someone using the app and using your program? How does, what's an example of, you gave an example of how someone helped themselves, but literally, yes, what were the steps in which someone like that helps themselves?
So here's, as I mentioned, if we go into, let's say, the marketing department at a Fortune 500 company, and we engage the employees there, they would do the assessment, we would get the information, they would then go on to the app again to do the management part of it to help improve their sleep. So, it depends on what their issue is. So let's say, for example, that they have delayed circadian rhythm. In other words, this is a person that is this what you want? You want me to give you an example of how they would go through this?
When someone listening could be interested, and they could see literally some of the steps, because they don't know how it works.
Yeah. So what they would do is they would then be given access to the app. And let's say if they have delayed circadian rhythm. So this is somebody who, let's say, wants to go to bed with their spouse at 10 o'clock, and their spouse falls asleep right away, but they can't, their mind starts going. And we've determined based on the assessment that they have circadian delay. So in other words, they could fall asleep easily at midnight, but they can't fall asleep at 10, but that's when they want to go to bed with their spouse. So what we would do is help them identify that this is the reason that their minds won't shut down, that actually their body can go to sleep. It's just you're going to sleep at the wrong time. So we would help them identify that, and we give them some steps to shifting that. For example, we may have them, since we want to shift their sleep timing, we would have them go through a number of steps that would be educational, it'd be fun. They'd learn about what, and a lot of the things I just mentioned, but many more things about sleep and how it fits with their own sleep. And then we might say to them as a step to try and resolve this, we want you to, after you get up in the morning, we want you to get into sunlight right away. Now, if you live in the northern climates in the wintertime, you're not going to get sunlight. So we may tell you, if you can't get sunlight for at least 30 to 60 minutes, go take a walk for 30 to 60 minutes. If that's not an option for you, then buy a 10,000 lux light box. And we could give them an idea of where to get that, probably on Amazon, and use it for 30 to 60 minutes in the morning. What that does is it starts to set your circadian timing, your circadian rhythm. Then we'll see how that goes for a week or so. And if there's still, might be a little better, but not completely, then we would start to introduce melatonin. We may have them check their vitamin D levels. We may, there's a number of things that may be part of their process to make sure that everything is set up in their system to be successful at falling asleep and staying asleep and doing it at the right time. And we'd guide them about exactly when to take their melatonin. We'd ask them if they want us to send them a cue through the app as to, remind them to take it. And so we would set up a plan using light and melatonin. Now we're going to start to shift their sleep timing so that they actually feel sleepier, maybe at 10 or 10:30. And this will happen over a period of a few weeks so that now they can successfully go to sleep with their husband. Now, I condensed that there, in one simple example, but the steps that would be guided by the app, there'd probably be about 3 or 4 additional steps in the process. But this is what we found to be successful in the right situation. And so we're able to identify the right situations and guide people to the right resolution or the right options for resolving it.
Well, very good. What's the best way for people to find out about the Sleep Performance Institute and get in touch if they want to help?
Go online to www.sleepperformanceinstitute.com, and there's information on our website about the work that we do with corporations and sports teams. And sleep's a big deal, so we're excited to start to make a difference, or make a bigger difference in the world.
Yeah, and what impact on human health do you want to have through the Sleep Performance Institute and your clinic? I know it's kind of a broad question, but what's your goal that you have in your mind?
Well, as I mentioned before, poor sleep leads to increased risk of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, dementia. The list goes on. Anxiety, depression issues are all greatly influenced by poor sleep. And so that's one area where we want to make a difference. People's mood, like you mentioned earlier, you can really tell the difference when you sleep well. And mood dramatically affects relationships. So I think in the end, we just want people to be healthier and to be able to do their lives better. And when they sleep better, it makes a huge impact on people's lives and how vibrant they are.
Thank you for coming on the podcast, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and sleep well.
You're listening to the Future Tech Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies such as artificial intelligence, stem cells, 3D printing, gene editing, Bitcoin, blockchain, the microbiome, quantum computing, virtual reality, and exploring space are much closer than you might think. In fact, many early versions of these technologies are in play right now, and the companies that are using these technologies are the focus of this podcast. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a thorny medical problem. Remember, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and tell your friends about it. Thank you.